Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're joining us. I'm Jennifer Rubinstein, Executive Director of the Louisville Independent Business Alliance. Many know us by our slogan, Keep Louisville Weird. We're all about local independent businesses, how they recirculate dollars and contribute to our sense of place. It's been a privilege to come together with so many worthy organizations across the city to plan this event. They include the Chamber of St. Matthews, Frankfort Avenue Business Association, Greater Germantown Business Association, Highland Commerce Guild, Jeffersontown Chamber of Commerce, Louisville Hispanic Business Association, Main Street Association, Middletown Chamber of Commerce, Noir Black Chamber of Commerce, Norton Commons Commercial Village Association, Nulu Business Association, Preston Area Business Alliance, and the South Louisville Business Association. And I also want to thank, of course, our media partners, Louisville Public Media, WDRB, and Aldea in America. And we've had an amazing partner in U of L College of Business. And we want to thank them for hosting us today. And I'm introducing the Dean of the College of Business, Dr. Todd Moradian.
Thank you for having me. Wow. In the run-up to this event, I got to meet the candidates and many of the people in the audience. I am so optimistic for our future here in the city of Louisville. In the College of Business at the University of Louisville, we are dedicated to our students, of course, and to accelerating their achievement of principled aspirations. We are dedicated to knowledge. Knowledge is how we change the world. And we're dedicated to our city and our region and to creating inclusive prosperity. So this event lies at the confluence of those passions. Bringing this event and these candidates an important, vital conversation about the future of Louisville to campus and to our students is our passion, and we are so pleased to be part of it. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Howlett from WFPL, and thank you for joining us for this important discussion. I'm joined by our journalists, question askers, WDRB digital reporter Marcus Green and WFPL city politics reporter Roberto Rodan. Let's begin with today's rules, the rules for today's forum. In the order they appear on the ballot, each candidate will have the opportunity to deliver a 1-minute opening statement, and then we'll move into our questions round, lasting about 45 minutes, where each candidate will be asked the same question with 1 minute to answer. You'll hear this sound when each candidate's time is up. We'll start with responses from candidates in the order they appear on the ballot, then rotate which party and individual answers first and last. So, with the first opening statement, here is Republican candidate Philip Molistina.
Good evening. My name is Philip Molistina. Thanks to U of L, to all those hosting for having us here this evening. I'm running for mayor of Louisville because I see a city where I've lived in for 40 years that's facing a lot of hopelessness. That hopelessness has put to me a burden to work and to make a change. I refuse to stand up, to stand against the things that are happening and that are destroying our city. And I'm hopeful that over the next couple of years, the work can be done to turn ourselves around where we need to go. For a long time, through these forums, I thought, why am I doing this here? Is it because of my college business degree? Is it because of my background as a pastor? It's because of the conviction I have for the city. It's because of the burden I have for the youth. It's because of seeing things where they need to be, and they're not right now. And that passion is the one that fuels me to be your next mayor of Louisville. Thank you.
Next is Bill Deriff.
I am Bill Deriff, the mayor of the city of Jeffersontown. And during the daytime, J-Town is the 6th largest city in the state. It has 38,000 employees and 1,800 businesses, and we have every department as Louisville has, including a police department that's second to none, and our chief will be coming downtown with us to lead us to a safer city. When I look back on my career, for 35 years I owned a small business. I had the checkbook on my lap, and as we talk about small business, we talk about a hardware store where you come in and you expect to be waited on and expect to have answers right away. So we give that wow in customer service. Whether you have a 5-cent nut or a $30,000 Bobcat, your concern is needed to be met right away. So in Louisville, we need to do that same thing. We need to represent everybody in this whole county. We need to make sure that the people of Louisville are safe in the future, have the customer service they deserve, and understand that the businesses that are here are the businesses that are important.
Next, we will hear from our Democratic candidates, and we'll begin with Timothy Finley Jr.
My name is Timothy Finley Jr. The reason why I'm running for mayor is because I believe that we have a moment a moment in Louisville where we can make a decision for real change. Tonight, you're going to hear a lot about change. You're going to hear buzzwords like equity, fairness, all of these wonderful things that captivate us. But yet we have to look back over the last several years and make a decision. Do we want 4 more years of the same, or are we ready to be a more inclusive, equitable city? Are we ready to make history and not only bring in fresh ideas, greater transparency? Are we ready to do what I believe this city is crying out for? I'm running for mayor because I've seen for far too long big promises and yet under-delivering. I'm ready to take our city to the next level. I'm ready to bring the most diverse administration the city's ever seen, and I'm ready to make this city a place where people want to live and want to move to. That's why I'm running for mayor.
Next is Shamika, Parish, Wright.
Good evening. I appreciate you all having this event. I'm excited to be here to represent a candidate for mayor that comes from the people, that actually started a business while she was homeless and staying at Wayside Christian Mission. I know what it means to struggle in this city, and I want to be mayor to change the way things are, to remove some of the red tape. Life is love, and love is business, and putting your passion and your family and your work into things that you believe in. Louisville is full of that, but it's not connected. It's so siloed, and I want to remove those barriers and bring us together. We get there together means that we build, we grow, we make sure that we're cultural, we're interconnected, we are intersectional, and we are inclusive. We have a lot of great ideas and business opportunities. They just need to be worked on together. I plan to be your mayor for everyone, and I plan to make sure that our young people can grow and have business too. Thank you.
Next is Skylar Groddick.
Hi, thanks for having me and for organizing this debate tonight. My name is Skylar Groddick. I categorize myself as a moderate. I stand for the First Amendment, especially the right of public employees like teachers and police officers to criticize their administration without the fear of getting fired. I'm for the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. I'm fiercely pro-union and believe in their ability to advocate for the wages, benefits, and working conditions of their members. I believe in the full legal recreational marijuana use and using tax dollars to bring business to our state and use that money to expunge people who have criminal records related to marijuana use. I'm also unapologetically pro-police. Why am I running for mayor and what are my qualifications? I'm the only person on this stage who has recent experience on the Louisville Metro Police Department as an officer. I was also a union lobbyist for the Fraternal Order of Police and have experience battling the forces in Frankfurt which seek to attack our city. So I believe those are the 2 most important issues in our city: public safety, which I have an insider's knowledge of, and the attacks on our city and our community members by the state.
Next is David Nicholson.
Good evening. My name is David Nicholson, and I want to thank the partners and those in attendance here this evening. We're reminded every day that our city is in the grip of a tragic cycle of violent crime, and it has shaken our community to its very core. A good quality of life begins with feeling safe. From the West End to the East End, from Fairdale to Shively, our residents deserve to be safe. When I announced on September 2nd, I made public safety the foundation of my campaign. And prosperity follows public safety. My administration will support the creation and good health of all small businesses, conventions, attractions, tourism throughout the community. In this election for mayor, experience really does matter. We must get this right. The future of our city, its neighborhoods and businesses depend on it. Thank you.
Next is Craig Greenberg.
Good evening. My name is Craig Greenberg. It's great to be here at U of L, where I had the honor to serve on the Board of Trustees, where I fought for transparency and to stop unnecessary tuition increases. Also, thank you very much to the Louisville Independent Business Alliance for putting on this forum. As someone who helped start and lead an amazing new Louisville business, 21C Museum Hotels, and now leads an amazing old Louisville business, Ohio Valley Wrestling, I understand the importance to Louisville's economy and our future of strong, independent, unique, weird Louisville businesses. I'm running for mayor because right now, while we have big challenges throughout our entire city, I see even bigger opportunities. Starting with public safety, we must make Louisville a safer city everywhere. We need to focus on building more affordable housing units. We need to create universal pre-K for all 3- and 4-year-old children, and we need to focus on economic development to to create more good-paying career path jobs.
And finally, with our opening statement is Colin Harden.
Hello, my name is Colin J. Harden, and I'm running for mayor to simply address the real issues here, which is not the policies, not the rhetoric, but the narratives that are spun. The narratives, they influence us when all the elite really want to do is divide and conquer, and they succeeded at that. I mean, these narratives are what allow insanity like a free and fair election to be stop the steal. I mean, even closer to home, there's narratives being spun right now about one of the candidates up here, a good friend of mine, Tim Finley, as if he had something to do with the assassination attempt on Greenberg. And that is just disgusting. Like, it's ridiculous. And these narratives, they spun to divide all of us into small little segments. So the narrative I will discuss with you today is that we live in a free market. Nothing could be further from the truth. And that hurts small businesses just as much as it does the working. Thank you.
And now we'll begin our questions. Here is Roberto Roldan.
The first question is on the issue of public safety. Over the past few years, Louisville has seen record-breaking gun violence. Public safety is a critical issue to small businesses. If some areas of the city are perceived as unsafe, both residents and businesses suffer. What strategies would you implement to make Louisville safer? First, we'll go to Ms. Parish Wright.
Thank you for the question. I have been asking for us to come together. The strategies I plan to employ will include our transition team and our accountability team working together to have regular updates, monthly meetings, quarterly updates, and check-ins on what's working and what's not working. As I do have a business in downtown, in the Hayburn building, I've also seen that that building is lots of traffic, lots of energy, lots of people wanting to come and get things done. The thing is that we have issues with accessibility, we have issues with building codes and things like that that need to be addressed as well. I want to create more opportunities for small businesses, and I plan to have them at the decision-making table to help us do that, as well as our community groups, our nonprofits who are working to alleviate the issues caused by root causes that have split up the equity and not allowed other businesses to flourish.
Mr. Groddick.
There's a lot of talk in the current public discussion about the relative size of police budgets and police training, but those are red herrings. The truth is that if you could triple the size of the police department, in my opinion now, that wouldn't really have much of an effect, and that's because of two main problems. The first being that the administration doesn't have officers' backs. I personally was more afraid of getting harassed and wrongfully accused of wrongdoing by my own police administration that didn't have my back than I was getting hurt on the street. So you're not going to have officers taking the steps and risking their livelihoods to go after people and do the hard police work that's going to likely result in the use of force, at least a minor use of force. Using resisting arrest is categorized as a use of force, so we can't expect our police officers to go after people if we don't have their backs. The other part is the courts. There's only a small percentage of people in our community who do the most violent crimes, and again, they're showed by the courts that there's no consequences for their actions. The final prong would be social services. We need to invest in places like the Healing Place who do have an excellent job treating drug addiction and mental health issues.
Mr. Nicholson.
As I stated, day one I announced a public safety plan for this community. That is the foundation. If you want sustainability for our businesses, for our families, it begins with public safety. And I take a micro of community-based policing and call it neighborhood-based policing. I have the deep experience, having been the executive director of the Criminal Justice Commission and the Homeland Security director here in this community, to know our most vulnerable assets are and how to protect those assets. But to protect our citizens, you must get in the neighborhood. The officer must understand that neighborhood and must respond accordingly to the crime that is going on. It takes both the resident and the officer working together. We'll have a commission on police accountability, a civilian police commissioner, and an Office of Violent Crime Services, and then most importantly, a fatality review to look at all of our fatalities.
Mr. Harden.
Greenberg? Okay. Well, to make Louisville safer is less about attacking the violent crime in general, and so much of this is giving people hope. Like, my generation and by and large the Zoomer generation, there's no future. I mean, wages have raised twice in my entire lifetime. You know, after the pandemic hits, what happens to corporations? Shut down all the small businesses, make all the workers essential, and then transfer trillions of dollars of wealth to the top again. It's like that, and that's all tantamount to the fact that the war on drugs, I'm going to end that, at least in Louisville, because it has done nothing. It has brought no net positive to our society. It's nothing but exacerbated the problem, and by and large, the police are aimed almost entirely at drugs. Like, that's insanity. We have violent crime. We have human trafficking. We have rape. We have plenty of crime. Using a substance is not a crime. It's as simple as that.
Mr. Finley.
It's interesting when we talk about public safety, we throw out statistics and we throw out the things that we talk about all year. And that is the risk factors that lead to violence in Louisville and around the country are fundamentally about the reduction of poverty, health equity, and the blossoming of opportunity. When I had my public safety press conference, I talked about pre-K, I talked about fair free transit, I talked about wages, because if we want to address violence in our community, we've got to look at it through an economic and equity lens. This is why, in my administration, I will make sure that in restructuring government, in restructuring metro government, I will ensure that there is a chief community health and safety individual, and they will deal not simply with police, but they will deal with the inequities in our city that continue to keep certain communities in a position to where there's a lack of hope. Everyone's running to police. That's not the answer.
Mr. Greenberg.
Making every neighborhood safe, every neighbor safe is my #1 priority. We'll do that through having a police force that's focused on community policing, one that's focused on preventing and solving crimes. And to get there, we need to hire more officers. I plan to fully fund and fully staff LMPD, hiring the needed 300 officers that they need so that they can really implement community policing to prevent crime from happening. I also aspire for our police department to be the best in America, the most trained, the most trusted, and the most transparent. In Louisville, we should expect nothing less. But to make Louisville safe, we need to do more than just work through our police force. We need to invest in the root causes of crime. We need to focus on more mental health resources for people throughout the community, invest in after-school programs and community centers, create more work opportunities for our youth and young adults, and invest in group violence intervention programs.
Mr. Dirov.
Making Louisville safe is something that, as mayor of Jeffersontown and part of Metro right now, I am doing. Chief Sanders and I understand what community policing is about. That's why we increased our police force by 10% to make sure our police have the training and the ability to get to know their community. At one point, we asked for 2 officers to be applied. We had 100 LMPD applied. Louisville asked for 300 officers. They had 14. That's a difference in leadership. So the difference in leadership downtown will make a huge difference. But we believe in community policing. We also believe intelligence-led policing, to where we understand how to put the bad guys in jail. But we shouldn't put the people that are addicted and have behavioral problems in jail. We should have them have help. And in Jeffersontown, we have the Angel program, we have the Victims Advocate, and we have a social worker to go in after the police go in to help those victims that are in there. We understand what it means to have a safe community because I do this on a daily basis.
And finally, Mr. Molistina.
Public safety has been one of the #1 topics we've talked in these forums. And though there's a lot of issues, a lot of ways to solve it, it comes down to really 3 things. One is trust. The community has to learn to trust the police, which is not there yet. The police need to trust their mayor. Next comes communication. The communication lines need to be clear, need to be with the community again, through the precincts, through the people that are out there in the neighborhoods, with the community leaders. If that communication is just done every now and then when tragedies occur or when something else is coming up, then that's not communication. But finally, it's conviction. We've been asked many times, so if you become mayor, will you replace the chief of police? Well, what's her convictions? If we can't sit down and talk with them, with her, all the way down to the people that are involved there, how do you really know what their convictions are for the job they're doing? Those are the type of things that we need to do and resolve so we can get public safety going in our city the way it needs to be.
Our next question comes from Marcus Green. This is a question about cutting down on red tape for small businesses. Navigating city regulations, rules, and permits can result in significant hurdles and red tape for small businesses. How would you approach Metro's existing regulatory climate, and specifically, what processes would you seek to eliminate, streamline, or strengthen? And we'll start this round with Mr. Molistina.
I've spoken to a number of different people so many times, business owners, developers, over the course of these past years, know some of them personally. And one of the number one things that they have a problem with is the way that our planning and zoning works so slow. So the answer to the question is really quick, quick, quick. We need to move in a different direction. We need to operate with a city that actually is welcoming to businesses, that is not making things difficult for people that want to go and operate and open up different things that are going on. We need to establish different things also, where if a business owner or developer is starting to put a business in and somebody else comes to oppose him, that they just can't do that easily. Right now, somebody that's trying to run a business or start something, somebody else can come and oppose them easily with just an argument. We should make things difficult to oppose so that that person that's trying to develop something in our city can be successful.
Mr. Deareth.
Well, as the person that has been mayor, and I keep saying that, but what we've done over the last 12 years is eliminated the red tape in our city to where we're known to be the business-friendly city, to where city people want to move, businesses want to move to our city. When I first came in, we moved a BOZA board and changed state law so that you could do that in Jeffersontown and get done in 6 to 8 weeks rather than 6 to 8 months. I have read the whole LDC and looked at places to make it simplified so businesses could get done quicker. What we don't realize is business doesn't make money until they get into business, and government doesn't make money until the business gets into business. During the pandemic, J-Town was the one that allowed restaurants to go out into the parking lot and serve food and serve liquor. We asked the state to change the same thing. Louisville followed the next day to move forward to make it better for you guys when it was during the pandemic. We are constantly creating means and method to make it easier for the small business, because as a small business owner, I understand what red tape means.
Next, Mr. Grodick.
My position on strengthening small businesses and their ability to cut through red tape is similar to my stance on unions and their ability to advocate for their workers. As my experience in Frankfurt allows me to see, it seems that there's only a representation for the largest businesses in our state and in our community. I believe that this is not my area of expertise, but I believe that the business owners who deal with the red tape day in and day out have the ability to speak for themselves, and they should be empowered to do that. They're the ones dealing with the issues on a day-to-day basis. They know what needs to be fixed so that they can be more prosperous. So I would advocate for an umbrella organization separate from the State Chamber of Commerce, Kentucky State Chamber of Commerce, to represent the needs of businesses so that they can better lobby Metro government, Metro Council, and our state legislature to get the benefits and other provisions they need to be successful.
Mr. Harden.
So, businesses have by and large, majority of them have a very parasitic nature with their community and, by and large, their resources and finances, and they drain, communities and finances and resources and then just continue on. Well, we're not getting anywhere if we do that here in Louisville. So there's another type of business, co-ops, in which it is in the company's best interest to invest in their employees. It no longer becomes about how much can I get out of this employee as far as finance goes, is how much can I get out of this employee and work-wise. And if we just got a community once again revived, like where wages weren't stagnant, and if I have to, I'll just go lobby Frankfurt every week by myself. I would just invent new ways to get under these people's skin until we get the something done. You see these red tapes and zonings, like, I don't care about them. Like, I'll be mayor, I'll get rid of them, unless it's in common sense. But these are made-up manufactured problems.
Again, the question is about eliminating red tape, and how would you approach Metro's regulatory climate? Mr. Finley.
Well, when you talk about the red tape, I think we have to put it in the proper framework, that this red tape is really a matter of public safety. You have not only the business community, but so many other entities and people in our city that are affected by a government that's not working right now, it's not efficient. That's why day one, I want to conduct an audit of what we do and how we do it. And I don't want to do it internally. I want to bring in a third party, because there are too many people and too many business owners in this community that are not able to prosper because they're having to fight through so much. In 1969, for example, the black population was 12.4% of the population. We owned 4.5% of the businesses. In 2022, we are now 22%, and we've taken a step back, and we own less than half of that. A lot of that is not because of our ideals, but it's because of regulations that have stifled growth in our community. That has to change immediately.
Mr. Greenberg.
I come from the hospitality industry, and in my former company, we had a saying: we say yes. We say yes to our guests. We say yes to our fellow colleagues. That, I think, is absolutely critical to bring that sense of hospitality to city government, where everyone in city government feels like they're being listened to and they have an opportunity to get things done. And so when it comes to cutting through red tape, to me, the culture needs to be about three things. It needs to be the city's response needs to be consistent, predictable, and prompt. And so as small businesses are coming to do business with the city, whether it's planning and zoning or any other department of the city, those will be the three tenets of the culture that we live by, bringing that hospitality sense to the city. We also need a city government that supports small businesses, because when Louisville's small businesses are on the move and doing well, Louisville is on the move and doing well, and so we will support entrepreneurs and small businesses.
Ms. Parish, Wright?
This is an excellent question, especially for someone who actually has a small business and has helped many people start small businesses. When I talk about the red tape, I talk about a lot of the small businesses do not feel connected to Metro government. I want to also make sure we pay Metro government employees better and well so they can do their job. There's a lot of people there who have great ideas, but they're just not heard. I want to get rid of positions that don't need to be there so that we can open up and help smaller businesses build more capacity. Most of them can't scale because they don't have the administrative support. We have to stop funding the usual suspects, and if they want to get funded, they need to help other businesses be brought up to scale. So besides paying people better, understanding that business is for everyone, the red tape is what stops a lot of Louisvillians from getting things done. I want to remove that in a real way, and I want local business to go in a direction that's more inclusive, engaging, and have an office for small business support as well as for food justice.
And Mr. Nicholson.
I very much appreciate the question. I want to thank our small businesses, our entrepreneurs, and family-owned businesses, because they have overcome this difficulty. My administration will properly resource, streamline, and direct. And by the word direct, I mean lead. I think too often the men and women we ask to review and to work with our developers and ones wanting entrepreneurs to start new opportunities, they are not led. And I've said over and over throughout this campaign, experience and leadership counts. So I'm ready. Leadership cannot wait, particularly in this area.
Our next question comes from Roberto Roldan.
Our third question is about access to child care. Data from United Way shows that over the last decade, Louisville has lost almost half of its child care providers. Early childhood education is key to building a pipeline of talent in our community, and access to child care is important for working parents. What would you do to expand access to child care and early childhood education opportunities? We'll start with you, Mr. Harden.
So something that FDR did during the New Deal era was, he was like, if the private sector can't give them jobs, then I'll do it. So we'll take a whole brand new wave of government employees that will subsidize child care across the board to at least middle school. You know, because child care, it's literally inefficient. They cost more money to do it. It hurts people at home. It takes people out of the workforce. And I mean, we've got to do something. And it was in like the 50s, like during World War II, when everybody was off war. We subsidized all healthcare, and everybody loved it. So, like, why do we regress? Because of these narratives, these narratives that keep us believing that we're progressing, we're number one, when in reality we're stagnant and regressive. So, I mean, like childcare, like we make $18 trillion in this country. We can pay for childcare.
Mr. Greenberg.
This is one of the things that I'm most excited about as your next mayor. I feel like the city government hasn't focused enough on education and particularly early childhood education. When I announced I was running for mayor, I announced I would create Louisville's first Department of Education. And one of the top priorities of that new department is to create universal free pre-K for all 3- and 4-year-olds throughout all Louisville. Regardless of neighborhood, regardless of income, every child in Louisville deserves the same opportunity to succeed. And I think we can do this. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do this right now, leveraging some of the federal funds that we've received on the American Rescue Plan and reaching out to some of the largest foundations across the entire country and asking them to invest in Louisville to put us on the map for the right reason, to invest in our kids so that all 3- and 4-year-olds have the same opportunity to succeed.
Ms. Parish, Wright.
Early childhood education is everything to me and my family. All 6 of my kids successfully completed, and I want my 3 grandchildren to have viable options. Everyone wants that. All families deserve that. We need to improve access, just as I talked about scaling small businesses up. Child care centers need the same. They need to have support from our Louisville Metro government on training. We need a partnership with JCPS to train its graduates to go into child care services. Make sure certifications and partnerships are up to date. This is a great segue for businesses and opportunities to improve the businesses on the block as well as the child care center. Make sure that folks are successfully completing everything that they need to be able to expand. Also making sure that our children don't die in these child care centers and there's adequate transportation, and working with TARC to make sure there's stops that go to those child care places, as well as 24-hour child care services, as many employers need 2nd and 3rd shift help.
Mr. Nicholson.
I will partner immediately with the public school system, their elected board of education and superintendent, to see how we further can foster early childhood education, because it is, for their success, our community success, much needed. At the same time, my administration will work with our business community to think, coming out of this pandemic, lessons learned and the ability to be more flexible, more understanding when it comes to the need of child care, looking to offer on-site as an employer benefit potentially. Again, good training, and we have just recently passed an ordinance that will allow some homes to be able to have more than a handful of children, I think up to 8 children in a home setting to meet these needs.
Mr. Groddick.
Well, I think we've heard a lot of good ideas from my fellow candidates, so I'm going to shift tack slightly and talk about an issue that's very important to me in my campaign. It'll be a top priority of my administration to make sure that every elementary, middle, and high school has before, after, and summer school programs. It's horrific that we have a lot of shootings and carjackings in our city, but what most people don't realize is that there's an extra level of horror on top of that, because a lot of these gun crimes are being committed by children ages 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. And so to me, that is very troubling. I'd like them to partner with nonprofits, our business community, and our education community to connect the dots between good behavior and civic engagement. Get them involved in painting murals to beautify our city, get them involved with internships with those groups I just described to seek gainful employment and continue their education. So I think that simple step of before, after, and summer school programs could really do a big difference in public safety and in helping our youth.
Mr. Finley.
Well, I'm glad to hear the rest of my colleagues are on board with universal pre-K. As the first candidate to come out early on and support universal pre-K, and as the only candidate that has an actual pre-K in the facility that I see every day and work in, I'm one that understands how important early childhood education is. It is my goal, it is our administration's push to see that every single 3, 4, and 5-year-old has access to quality child care, quality education in our city. One of the things that that's very important to me is not to create a new department, but it's to bring support to already existing systems and to improve communication between Metro government and JCPS. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to actually do better about communicating, being transparent, and making sure. That's why I'm about universal basic income, fair, free transit, because all of these things work in cooperation to make sure our children are the future.
Mr. Diriff?
6 years ago, Mayor Glenn C. and myself worked on preschool program. We found out what it meant to be and how do we do it across this county, and unfortunately the pandemic hit, or we would have been pushing this forward faster than it ever has been today. So I am very much an advocate of what we should do for preschool, because if a young male makes it to third grade and does not have the capability to read and write, his destiny is very much in the wrong direction. But also the question is child care. Child care, as a person that was the president of Kentucky League of Cities, and before and after that, I am in Frankfort all the time working for this county, working for our city, and working for the state. And I understand what it will take in order to bring Frankfort to allow us to have a credit either through a company providing it or a small business be able to get credits back for those that they help their family to do. But also we have to change the land development code, which I've read all 987 pages, to allow both businesses to have child care.
Mr. Molistina?
There's no doubt, I agree with all of my fellow candidates, child care initiatives are important, but I can tell you one thing. 4 years from now, in a similar debate, you're going to be hearing the same things, because what's offered is just talk. What's offered is just ideas. What offered is things to just get voters excited. But what makes this to work is to get hands-on with very difficult people in Frankfurt to help fund it. Looking at city budgets to look at to see what, not to cut things just to cut things, but to see what can the city put towards it. Working, like Mr. Dira says, with private businesses, working with entities that can partner and bring credits to. Coming up with real solutions, because talk, if you look at the cost of what we're just saying to do, it's not, the city can't do it. But it's coming to finding solutions that are realistic is the ones that I think we should push and look for and do as one of us become mayor of the city of Louisville.
And Roberto Roldan continues with our fourth question.
Our next question is about development. It comes directly from our survey of business association members. Some areas of Louisville are seeing rapid development and redevelopment. How important to you is the voice of residents to be heard in guiding development? And do you think that there's something that should be done differently to give residents and existing business owners more of a voice? We'll start with Mr. Molistina. Well,
obviously, as a city, we want our city to be developed. I think that we have to take in consideration that we have a city that has different areas. You can't talk about development in the south end of Louisville like you can talk development in the east end of Louisville. So we have to, first of all, be particular of working with the organizations that exist in those areas, what they have done to defend and to maintain the areas how they are, but also not stopping from being able to bring good things to our city. I think that the voice of the people, whether it be in the south end, the east end, west end, wherever it is, needs to be heard. They know their communities. They know what's needed. They know what's missing from there, and also they can be the ones, the voices, together with developers, of saying there's too much, of having too many of the same things in the same places. So it's definitely communication lines, but being aware of who we're talking to in different parts of the city.
Mr. Diriff.
As a person that helped write the 2040 plan of where we look in the future for the next 20 years, the one thing I would recommend for everybody to do in any community is look at your community and see how you want it to be developed in the future before development comes to you. Let's adjust the land development code, adjust what your community looks like, because each community is uniquely different. We have overlay districts, we have zoning districts. So before somebody comes to you with a development, let's look and see what you look and envision your development to be. We also have to start doing smart development. And smart development involves a community coming together to realize what it would be like when they see the future. In J-Town, we did the downtown development. We developed our own zoning classes in order to allow businesses to prosper without having to change zoning, to allow restaurants and bars to have outdoor dining, to allow different businesses to have the effect that is his, allow them to do what they need to do to prosper in the future.
Mr. Greenberg.
One of the things that makes Louisville so special is our authentic and unique neighborhoods. We have so many wonderful neighborhoods across our entire city. And so as we support growth in all of these neighborhoods, as we want all of our neighborhoods to grow and thrive and be great walkable, bikeable, livable communities where people can live and can play and can work, we have to include their voice. And so yes, I strongly believe in neighborhoods having a voice in the future of their neighborhoods. That's critically important. One of the things that the city can do is before a development is even proposed or a new business is even proposed is to work with neighbors on what infrastructure they need. Do they want and need additional parks? Do they need more sidewalks? Are the roads crumbling? What can we do as the city to help support a quality master plan for each neighborhood across Louisville so that the growth and development and future of each neighborhood is what the neighbors want?
Mr. Nicholson.
Well, as mayor, I'm going to have a very assertive economic development team, and certainly partnerships are critical to any city's economic development success. My skills as a collaborator will create these synergies, and they will start in all neighborhoods and must start with the residents and the developers. We already have successful developments in this community that would not have been there, but they were successful because both partnerships collaborated to bring about a development. You have to be there on the front end, not the back end, when you're talking about growing and to be a vibrant city and one that we can recruit new companies, build our existing companies. It's about a partnership and collaboration.
And I just want to remind the candidates that the topic of the question is development. We'll go next to Mr. Groddick.
Sure. I think, first of all, we need to get our priorities straight. If we can spend $110 million of taxpayer money on the Omni and $10 million on the Marriott, then we don't have our priorities, then we don't have a know-how or money problem, we have a priorities problem. Why can't we develop the West End and food deserts? Louisville is much more than Frankfurt Avenue and downtown and Bardstown Road. The other part is, as a lobbyist who has tried to use public support to influence legislation, I know that there's oftentimes a farce of public input where they'll have public meetings to say that the public was invited when really all the decisions were made before anyone even got to the table. They were made behind closed doors. So if the residents want to pick an area to live, to send their kids to school, to invest their futures in, then they deserve to have a say in what exactly is going on in their neighborhood in terms of development. So they deserve, if they can't get a voting seat at the table, which would be the ideal thing, a voting seat at the table with developers, they at least need access to the developers and to Metro Council and the ones making the final decisions.
Mr. Finley.
Certainly the community needs a voice. There needs to be a community commission. But I think we also have to be very realistic. Our city is in the top 10 most segregated cities in America. Yes, we need to have community involvement and voices, but that's not really the issue. The issue that we're seeing today is that certain communities have much more access than other communities. As the next mayor of Louisville, I want to make sure that every development project across the city is equitable. It's one where we see that it's serving the needs of the community, and the community that it's serving has had a part in speaking to what's going on. But also to that, we have to tear down these walls where we are okay with putting certain businesses and certain pet projects in certain areas of the city, but not allowing those residents to move anywhere they want to move to. That's a major issue that we need to speak to as you talk about development.
Mr. Harden.
So we need to quit talking about all this new development when we have entire neighborhoods dilapidated, and I mean, frankly, that's something in The Walking Dead. Like, we need to get in those neighborhoods and restore them. I mean, the amount of houses that I see and buildings that are boarded up and just left to just, be tagged or catch fire, or to let, homeless people sleep in because we're, too cheap to get them a homeless shelter. See, all these problems, they all confess from the same thing. See, as Louisville mayor, my priority will be the investment in the community, not the return on the investment. That will come later. But we gotten in this situation like saving money. We're not going to get out that same way. It's part of the reason that I, as mayor, I'm going to pledge half my salary each year towards these nonprofits and charities, anything that can help Louisville, because making money is not the priority of government. Like, everybody's talking about experience. Well, if you had experience, you got us where we are now, and that's not going to help us anymore.
And finally, Ms. Parish Wright.
Well, I actually agree with some things I heard here. A minute is not long enough to tell you, but our city, we are in a development city. We're a development strong city, but we're not listening to residents. When I travel as I'm running for mayor to talk to all the different communities and small cities, they all feel left out in some way. I also noticed that when I'm in Norton Commons, I don't see a dollar store, but when I'm in the West End, I see a whole bunch of them. The emergence of dollar stores is a problem, and that is why we know that no one's listening to the people. So I, as mayor, will make better appointments. Mayoral appointees matter. That's something that we can do something about. Have monthly and quarterly meetings to check in on development. And I believe in community building agreements. Before you bring something into a community, you need to have real voices and make sure that they can have a voting period where they can say if they want it or not. Too much has been built over, but everybody wants something shiny and new. They just don't want it built over them, and they want to have access to it and to be able to afford it once it's built.
Now to Marcus Green for our final question.
This is a question about downtown revitalization. Downtown is the core of the city, but it is a much different place than it was before the pandemic. A number of employers are embracing hybrid and remote work permanently. Some Louisvillians perceive downtown as dangerous. What is your goal for downtown and its businesses, and how would you encourage investment, vibrancy, and new opportunities there? We'll start with Mr. Nicholson.
Well, as we know, coming out of the pandemic, we saw many of the businesses we lost in the heart of our downtown, which is the core. But this last Saturday, we saw how our residents came to thunder over Louisville. So, as I've said, public safety, prosperity is the resource that will bridge bringing businesses, the vibrant of seeing officers, a fully staffed neighborhood-based policing model for this community, and allowing the business owners to recognize that we're going to protect those businesses. We're going to look at the downtown one-way streets that deny access to many of our businesses and look at how we can get better access to them.
Mr. Finley.
And this information is on my website, www.finleyformayor.com. We've announced a plan that identifies 10 economic drivers for income, job, and business growth and retention in Louisville, specifically in the downtown area. I'll quickly list those. Number one, I want to complete the MBA deal for Louisville. Number two, I want to create the Arts Council to seed multiple events held in various downtown venues, subsidies for local events, 3-year commitments to each event, featuring our city as a place of cultural and social possibility. Also, free TART fairs, supporting education and revitalizing downtown, micro-transit for workforce development and school bus partnerships, and last but not least, developing a downtown hub development that seeks to bring in more businesses to the area.
Mr. Harden.
So, first of all, I'll go, past 9th Street and do some development and investment there. We could revitalize all these neighborhoods with a little flair of the Louisville weirdness that we like. I mean, how many businesses were lost during the pandemic? And how many of them could be salvaged with breaks or leeways given in light of their situation over the past 2 years? Because there is something like hundreds of millions of dollars that weren't spent because people were so worried about being audited by the Federal Reserve during the pandemic. Because, again, the obsession with money, right, Thunder over Louisville was huge, and Derby will be huge. That'll be enough to, bring life right back to the West End. And, I mean, we start there. We start with the buildings, the communities. That's basically it.
Ms. Parish, Wright.
Okay, I have a business downtown. I've been in that business since 2016, and I'm going to tell you, be honest with you, downtown was on a downward slope before COVID or civil unrest. It lacks culture, it lacks events, it lacks hours. It closes too early. And there's a bunch of downtown groups who are dedicated to improving that, but they're not connecting to the other communities and cities. So I agree, we need better transportation, we need more opportunities, and we need to actually listen to the young people when they tell you what they want to see downtown, what would make them feel good down there. I actually feel safe downtown. I slept on the ground down there. I think that what has happened to downtown is that we've been building over people, and now those buildings and all those things need to be more accessible, to opened up, more cultural events, more foodie tours, more opportunities to connect more people from the other 80 small cities who don't get the support that downtown gets. Downtown has been greedy, and it has neglected other parts of Louisville. We have to give back.
Again, the question is about downtown and the candidates' goals for downtown. Mr. Greenberg.
I'm passionate about a strong downtown for a strong Louisville. What I foresee for our downtown as we come out of the pandemic is a downtown where more than 5,000 new residents are added to downtown, where we have not just people working there, but also strong cultural institutions, strong retail establishments, a grocery store, more places to eat, more things to do, because a strong downtown means a strong Louisville. One way to do this is the city can help. The city owns so much property in downtown that's not being used. Whether it's surface parking lots or unused buildings, there's an enormous opportunity for the city to get out of the real estate holding company business and into the partnership business to help catalyze the redevelopment of downtown. From parking lots to Louisville Gardens, there is so much opportunity. We also need to improve public transportation, and we need to make sure as we do it, we keep downtown clean and that we keep it green with a lot of green space. So I'm really excited to help make this happen.
Mr. Grodick.
I think the initial prompt of the question was accurate in that downtown does have an image problem. It has a lot of problems, not in an absolute sense, but in a relative sense of, you know, if downtown has these problems, then I'll just go somewhere else to spend my money and go to a business somewhere else. For instance, there's a large homeless population there that turns a lot of people off from going there. Let's invest in places like the Healing Place, who just launched a mental health and homeless outreach program that's tried and true to help those people. That's not a well-known program. Let's get that out there. We need a visible police presence downtown like most other cities our size has, walking patrols, bike patrols to make people feel safe. And let's also beautify downtown. Let's get our youth involved in painting murals. Let's get our local artists involved. We have a vibrant artist community. Let's also make it more accessible. There's nowhere downtown where you can go and not have to pay for parking and then walk 2 or 3 blocks. If you're lucky, you might get a spot out front, but usually not. So all those things together can be done. Let's do them and re-energize downtown.
Mr. Deroff.
The one thing we have to say about downtown is we all feel it's unsafe. That could be perception or that could be reality. So we have, as mayor, has to give it a ability for somebody to say, yes, it's safe to come downtown and I want to come downtown. And that starts with the policing of downtown. But we also have to look at the homeless population downtown. We haven't touched that tonight. And we have to quit moving the homeless around like we're moving chairs on the Titanic and hoping that it'll go away, because the Titanic sank, guys. So we have solutions that can do that to help those people. But we also, as we mentioned, we have to have surface parking, and above the surface parking, I've met with different developers downtown. They want to put housing. Any vibrant town that we've visited across this United States since I've been running for mayor and since I've been mayor has a vibrant living downtown. So we both have to make a living downtown, a safe downtown, but we also have to let business be business and get government out of the way and let them be successful.
And finally, Mr. Molistina.
There's no doubt that there's some public safety issues in downtown, but I don't think those are the ones that are stopping it from going back to where it needs to go. Without companies bringing their workers back the way they have to, then downtown never grows what it needs to. I've never seen figures here for our city, but as an example, the city of New York, each downtown worker brings $6,000 to the local economy. So what's happening in our city? Workers need to come back. I know companies are resistant to those type of things. As workers come back and as they spend the money, as new businesses keep growing and expanding in downtown, then what the city needs to do is to work with some attractions. You go to any big city and people go visit, it's because there's some attractions. There's things to go see. One of the things that we also need to do with our downtown, as we were talking here, is that tech jobs, I have a vision for bringing tech jobs in parts of the city that have been forgotten about, because those are the areas where jobs to create wealth need to go to, and those need to be close to downtown.
Well, thank you to all of our mayoral candidates for participating in this evening's forum, and my fellow panelists, Marcus Green and Roberto Roldan, and U of L College of Business for hosting. From the Louisville Independent Business Alliance and its partners, WDRB News and WFPL News, thank you so much for tuning in. There's much more information about the candidates for mayor and other races in the May 17th primary election at WFPL.org and at WDRB.com. I'm Rick Howlett, WFPL News. Good evening.
That's a wrap.